Welcome back to For the Sake of the Argument. Lori Goldman here. My guest today was Mai Xiong, who is the current House District Rep, District 13, and she's running for re-election this year. And she had an amazing story. I mean, amazing, inspiring, terrifying story of how she came to be in this country. And I think her perspective is worth really considering, because we all feel pretty strongly about immigration, and I hope that most of us feel strongly in the right way, that we need immigrants because that's how our country was founded, and that's how we maintain the strength of our country. But she said it all, and I hope you follow me and For the Sake of the Argument on all social media platforms. State Representative Mai Xiong, thank you so much for being here today on For the Sake of the Argument. Beautiful name. I love your name. And I love what you're doing in office. Now, you represent House District 13. Can you tell us what communities that covers?
I represent the communities of Warren, Roseville, and St. Clair Shores in Macomb County.
Okay, pretty diverse communities, right? A lot of people.
Yes, very diverse.
A lot of constituents. Democrats at a national level and here in Michigan seem afraid. Sorry if that makes you angry, some Democrats, but they seem afraid to speak up against Trump and the Republicans despite their obvious abuses. Why do you think so many Democrats are refusing to fight back? What's your opinion on that?
It's really scary times. It is extremely scary, unprecedented times, and there's a lot of fear out there on what is the right thing to do. And when you see leaders at the very top use very violent tone, it's scary because it enables others to act a certain way. And we have seen the political violence against elected officials increasing. So it is very scary. And we have families and we're all human beings. And so we have to balance that part of our life and also our job. But ultimately, we can't lead with fear.
I agree with you, and I can see where that would be some concern, but I still think they could stop short of kissing the ring, but that's just me. What do you think Democrats can be doing here in Michigan to resist Trump's and Republican House Speaker Matt Hall's agenda?
Well, we have to work together. Ultimately, people want to see Democrats and Republicans working together. So it's not that we want to have this divisiveness in government. The only way that government can work is if we work together. So I can see why some individuals may choose to stay quiet because they are working behind the scenes instead of openly. So it is very disheartening when you, as the American people, see that a lot of things are happening across our country and our state, that there's an injustice against certain groups of people. We have to be willing to speak up. And I think here in Michigan, we have tried to do our best to do that, to deliver for Michiganders, even despite the split government, even despite the relationship that Hall has with the Trump administration. Ultimately, in order to pass legislation, it has to go through the House, the Senate, and get signed into law by the governor. And so we have to work together, whether we like it or not. And I think as Democrats, we are a lot more forgiving, and we are also more empathetic. Whereas the other side, it's sort of like, my way or the highway.
Yeah, I don't know how you overcome that. You did something pretty brave recently, in my opinion, very ballsy. At the Detroit Auto Show charity preview, you wore a beautiful dress. I can't remember. I saw it on social media all over the place. Was it pink or red?
Pink. Yes.
A pink dress with a fabulous pink cape. And on the pink cape was the slogan, defund ICE, not child care or health care. What inspired you to do that? And did you get any kudos or did you get any pushback when you were walking around all over that auto show floor with those hundreds of people?
Well, believe it or not, Lori, I actually designed and sewed that dress in a matter of 3 days. I had some leftover pink satin fabric from a previous project from last year. And when I was asked to attend the Autoshow preview, the charity preview, as legislators, as elected officials, we get invited every single year. And I didn't go last year, but when I was invited this year, I just thought, do I want to go? Do I want to dress up? Do I want to go and take pictures in front of these beautiful cars with these other people and, rubbing elbows with millionaires and CEOs and executives and my colleagues? And I just thought, I don't want to do that. I don't want to pretend that today in our country there is an injustice on our streets, in our neighborhoods, in our communities. And as an immigrant, as a refugee, I know very intimately about what is happening across our country today. So I decided that I was going to attend and that I was going to come with a statement. And so I just knew that this opportunity, there are over 7,000 people that attend this event every year, this charity preview. You have to pay $400 per ticket or more if you're a sponsor, and be in a room with other powerful people who are decision makers. So why would I not? Why wouldn't I go and speak up? And so that's what I decided to do. And I chose the words defund ICE because right now there is a funding bill that Congress will ultimately have to pass for DHS. And if they don't do that, well, we could potentially face a federal government shutdown again. It's a very complicated process, but that big, beautiful bill that Trump signed into law already gave DHS $190 billion with a B.
Wow, that's a lot.
Of that money, $74 billion to ICE. So that is why we are seeing an increase in ICE enforcement and ICE officers. And so this separate bill that they have to pass ultimately will either increase ICE's budget, or they can just pass a bill and say they're not going to get any more than they already are going to get. So all of this is related. Childcare, healthcare are two very important things, not just to me, but the people that I represent, especially moms and parents with young children. As someone with 4 young children, I know how important access to affordable childcare is, so that we can be contributing members of society, go back to work and feed our family. And no one wants to be on assistance, but ultimately, when you're a parent raising 4 children, it is very difficult to be able to do that. So childcare, investing in childcare is very important, as well as healthcare. All of this money that is being taken away from other programs is being redirected to ICE, border security, and immigration control. But we know that the policy is where things need to change. And unfortunately, throwing money at a problem is not going to fix it. So when I thought about the message that I want to send to my community, to the American people, is that ICE and DHS does not need any more money than they have already received. And now let's focus on investing in our future, our health care, and our child care.
There's a confusion. I feel it, and I know other people do too, between defunding ICE and abolishing ICE. I don't think they're the same thing, but you just mentioned something very important. A lot of money is being thrown into getting more ICE presence in all of our cities. That I read something recently. They're putting out applications that people aren't even filling out. A reporter didn't even fill out the application, and she just did it to highlight this, and she was given a green light that she was hired. So they're not even able to keep up. They already have so much personnel and so many ICE officers. So what is the difference? Defunding ICE is going to mean taking money away from them and not giving them unlimited budgets to hire more and more and more people to invade our cities. And abolishing ICE is taking it all away. I'm sure there's a fine line between that.
There is. There's definitely a difference between the abolish and the defund, because first of all, there will be more ICE officers. You can definitely, mark my word, because they have received so much money that they are actively hiring as many people as they possibly can, so that they can put them on the streets and they can make it seem like to the American people that, hey, look, we're doing all of these things. Now your communities are safer. That's the message that they're sending. And from the right, and a lot of the attacks that I received were, well, you don't support law enforcement. You support illegal immigrants. And I say, that isn't true. I want a safe community as well, too. I want to support our police and fire, our county sheriffs. What I don't support are federal officers shooting U.S. citizens in broad daylight.
Without
when they
provocation.
Yes, without provocation. And I think people understood this. So when people saw me wearing this dress, the response was overwhelming. It was overwhelmingly positive. No one was hostile. There were strangers who came and tapped me on my back and said, thank you so much. Thank you for your message. Thank you for supporting this. Thank you for wearing this dress. And I had 2 top executives, which I won't name their corporations, came up to me, shook my hand, and said, and one of them said, you are the best dressed person in this entire place.
Wow.
7,000 people. And he said, I run this place. And then I just said, thank you for not kicking me out. And so, so he was thanking me for wearing this dress and putting out this statement. And people were stopping me, just asking to take photos. They wanted to take photos of the Cape. But now I'm getting a lot of hateful messages and threats online post charity event after sharing photos of it. And some of those may just be spam accounts, troll accounts.
Right.
But some people, they genuinely were upset because they said, why do you want to defund law enforcement? Because in the past, it was, defund the police. Now it sounds like it's defund ICE. But we have to separate the two. The police is supposed to protect us. ICE's job is to enforce immigration. Instead, you're seeing them arresting and killing American citizens or those that are immigrants that have never committed a crime. We know that the vast majority of people that ICE is detaining are either lawfully here as residents who've never committed a crime, or if they were undocumented, they have never committed a crime. So we need to distinguish between the two. And that is the message that I think as Democrats that we need to continue to talk about, is that Democrats support public safety. We support our police and fire. Just look at the record. I mean, Republicans are actively defunding the Michigan State Police. They are taking millions of dollars out of our state fund that could go towards public safety for our local governments. So don't listen to what they're saying. Like, watch what they're doing. What they're doing is they are defunding our local law enforcement and our Michigan State Police. Meanwhile, the message is, if you get more ICE officers on the street, we're supposed to feel safer. Well, guess what? None of us feel safe now because everybody's carrying their passport or birth certificates. And as Americans, we have a right to not have to live in fear and to not have to carry all of that documentation with us. It's absolutely ridiculous that we have to do that. And so the difference between the abolish and the defund is that ICE doesn't need any more money. They have received billions of
That's
dollars.
what defund
But
means, not
defunding,
elimination.
Yes, elimination, I don't think we're there yet.
No.
I think for the people who want to see a complete elimination, I mean, we're just not there. I don't know if we'll ever get there. But we do need to improve our immigration policies and our immigration system. And instead of throwing billions of dollars towards border security and immigration control, let's look at the policy. Let's look at the Immigration Nationality Act that hasn't been changed for decades. And when it was changed in January of last year, the first piece of legislation that Trump signed into law was the Laken-Riley Act. And that act made it easier for the federal government to detain anyone without due process because of an individual who was undocumented, killed a young woman tragically, and he had, I think, been arrested for burglary and then released. So the thought process for the right is like, since that one undocumented person did that, now everyone needs to be punished for it. And so this legislation was signed into law, and it would enable for the federal government to detain someone, even if they were just accused of a crime, not even convicted, not sentenced. If someone just accused them of doing something such as stealing a piece of candy or a can of formula, a mother stealing a can of formula because her baby is hungry and she happens to be undocumented, she could be detained and deported within a matter of 2 weeks. So the system is not working for people to have a pathway to citizenship. And that system, too, like the USCIS, that department in DHS, has been defunded. That money has been redirected from that department to border security and immigration control, and there are not enough judges, there are not enough caseworkers to process all of these documents. And so then when they say, we'll do it the right way.
That works to their favor, this administration's.
Yes. Yeah. And people say, well, do it the right way. Well, hey, they are doing it the right way. But guess what? They're waiting decades for their applications to be processed. And then it gets expired. And then you're moving the goalpost so then they can never become a U.S. citizen. And then you're detaining them while they're in court trying to do the right thing.
Right. It's like a nightmare. This is not what our country was built on. All right. Outside of ICE, we could talk about that all day, and it's a horrible subject. But what problems do you see affecting Michigan, and what is the legislature doing about them here in Michigan?
Affordability and housing are two very important things that I hear from constituents. They can't afford their rent, especially seniors who live on a fixed income.
I'm a realtor. I see it every day. It's a problem.
Yes, and we are not building enough affordable housing for families. And part of that is when you detain immigrants who are here to work, many of them work in construction, and they are the ones building homes. And we are losing workers because of this failed policy. So there's that part. But there's also the rising prices in groceries. And when Trump was here last week, he said, grocery prices went down. Well, that same day, the numbers came out. Grocery prices actually went up 2.7%.
Lies,
and
lies,
it's gaslighting.
Lies, yes.
It's gaslighting. And as a mom with 4 kids who goes grocery shopping every single week, I can see it for myself that these prices are not going down. Energy prices are going up. People's utility, electrical bills is going up, and wages are not.
Yeah, I know. I agree. I put a package of Brussels sprouts that was $8. I put it back because my kids love Brussels sprouts, but not for $8.
Yes.
Tell us about legislation that you've brought forward for reproductive data collection and what that is, and Medicaid enrollment.
So I have a bill that I'm working on from last term, and a lot of women, myself included, use apps that will track our menstrual cycle. And there is no law in place to protect women's reproductive data. So if you're using these apps, these companies can sell your data, and there is no repercussion. And so one of these companies has been founded to sell our data that we are putting into these apps, and we have no protection. So this bill would ensure that we would have protection when it comes to consumer data, reproductive data, health data, because that information is very much private. And when we use these apps, we think that our information is not going to be shared or used in a certain way, and it has been abused in the past. And so that's one piece of legislation I'm working on to help make sure that we protect women's reproductive data.
Because they can put you in a certain category, age group, reproductive health group, socioeconomic group, and they can extract this. And part of that is medical, which is supposed to be privileged, right? HIPAA violations, things like that. But that is a crazy thing. That must have been a loophole, but now nobody cares, right? They just want to let it alone.
Well, I think a lot of laws are very old, right? And technology has moved so quickly that we don't have laws in place to address technology, new emerging technology like AI and apps like this. And a lot of women use these apps thinking that their information on their device is private, but ultimately it could be sold to a third-party company, and we would have no rights after that. And these apps store a lot of data. Mm-hmm. They know a lot about us, and so it's important for us to be able to ensure that individuals' data, especially health data, is protected.
Absolutely.
So that's something I'm working on. And the Medicaid one, we know that when families apply for SNAP or TANF, the cash assistance, a lot of them are parents with young children who also may qualify for Medicaid. And so I'm working on a bill that would ensure that we would be able to do sort of like auto enrollment. So if they're applying for food assistance, most likely they would qualify for Medicaid. But sometimes they may not know this, and there's other applications or other loopholes that they have to go through to qualify for these other benefits. And if they don't, then they miss out on that. And so my bill would ensure that if someone were to apply for SNAP or TANF, that they are automatically screened for Medicaid to see if they qualify, or that DHS would provide information to them so that they know that they could potentially be qualified for health care.
Oh, that sounds like another important piece of legislation. Thank you for that.
Yes, thank you.
Let's go back to how you came to Michigan. You were a child fleeing with your family from Thailand, and you came to Michigan. When you think about your parents' decision to uproot your family and everything that they and you knew and start over here in Michigan, what lessons from that experience still guide you today as a mother of 4 children and as a legislator?
Well, my parents lived in Laos, in the mountains in northern Laos, right on the border of Vietnam, and they didn't know a world outside of their village. And in the 60s, my father was 17 when he was recruited by the CIA to help aid American soldiers. And because of the Geneva Accord, the U.S. was not allowed to enter a neutral country like Laos. And so you had this war going on in Vietnam. And so the CIA recruited my father and other Hmong villagers to help block this trail going into Vietnam and to rescue the pilots that were being shot down onto the Laotian side. So that's how my father got involved in the war. He served America long before he was ever a U.S. citizen. That's why I tell people, he was more patriotic than a lot of people who
and in a
claim to
very
be
dangerous
patriotic.
way.
Yes.
To not only your father, but to your family.
Yes. So after the war ended in 1975, the U.S. pulled out of Laos and Vietnam, and anyone that had aided America was essentially persecuted because they were seen as traitors to the communist Lao government. And so my parents actually hid in the jungles for 4 years. They did not want to leave their home. They thought the Americans were going to come back and rescue them, or that they could continue to live where they have always lived. That was their home. That was their farmland. Like, they loved living in Laos. And so they hid in the jungles for 4 years.
How old were you when
I
that
wasn't
was
born yet.
Okay, got you.
So I wasn't born yet. And then eventually in 1979 is when they realized that they had to escape out of Laos. Otherwise, they would die or they would starve. And so they fled Laos into Thailand. And between that time, there was probably, hundreds of thousands of refugees that had fled out of Laos at that point. And so there were refugee camps that were set up on the border of Thailand, so right across from Laos. My parents swam across the Mekong River in the middle of the night into Thailand, and they were placed into refugee camps where they lived for 7 years. So I was born in a refugee camp in Thailand, and we came here when I was 3. So I don't remember the time that I was in the refugee camp, but I know growing up, my mom would always tell me stories about living in Laos and hiding in the jungles and eating bark and just surviving on whatever they could find. And when she, swam across the river, she was pregnant with my older sister, and she had 3 kids with her. And my dad, found a tire and fastened it around her waist, and then pulled her alongside the river. So she had swallowed so much water, she thought she wasn't going to survive. And it was a miracle that my mom survived, that I survived, because then I was born on dirt floors in a bamboo shack, surrounded by barbed wires. We were not
Your mother
allowed.
was pregnant with you?
With my oldest sister.
Your oldest sister,
yes.
got it.
Yep. So when we arrived in the camp, she gave birth to my sister, to my older brother, and then to me. And so there were 4 of us that were born in the camp, 3 that were born in Laos, and then 2 born in America. So a total 9 of us siblings. And my mom, gave birth to me alone. There was no medical care. There was no clean running water. There was no electricity. There was no health care. There was none of that. And she gave birth to me. And it's quite a miracle that I survived.
Probably no privacy.
No privacy at all. No privacy, no clean water. Just just living dirt poor, literally dirt poor. And when we arrived, my parents didn't speak a word of English. My mom had never stepped foot in an educational institution. My mother had the educational level of a kindergartner. She knew how to write her name and count to 10. And my father got his GED, and he found a job as a machine operator, and he made $6 an hour, raising 9 children. My mom stayed home, and she would bring these college sweaters home with these Greek letters on them, and she would sew them, and we would make 50 cents per letter. So that is how we made a living. And when I was 11, my mom taught me how to sew so that I could help her. So growing up, my childhood, all I remember is sitting in the living room and sewing all of these sweaters. Like, there were piles of sweaters. We were like living in a sweatshop, and we literally earned pennies growing up. And even then, even after sewing thousands of sweaters, that was not enough for us to pay for housing and food and clothes. And so we did rely on public assistance. I, lived in a neighborhood where it was, known as the projects. I had relied on Section 8 housing.
That's what it's
food.
for, to help.
Yes. And I'm so grateful that I was able to benefit from this system, that to have a public education. And here was my mother, who had never stepped foot in an educational institution, and she was sewing sweaters for students to go to college. And
Greek letters.
When
she didn't even read.
She didn't even know. We never knew what these letters meant, but we sewed them. And I just think that's so ironic. But after I graduated high school, I moved to Detroit because I grew up in Ohio, and moved to Detroit, went to the College for Creative Studies right here in Detroit, got my Bachelor of Fine Arts, and found a really good job and worked for over 15 years. And my father passed away in 2014, but my mother was able to see me get elected to the county commission in 2020, and then she passed away during COVID. And I just think about how difficult of a life they had, that they were able to raise 9 children on a $6 an hour income, and they were able to make it work, and it was really hard. And at some point, I think that the life can break you. They were so resilient that they managed to, cross literally a river and an ocean to bring me here, because they knew that this country was a country of opportunities. They knew that their kids would get a free education that they never had the opportunity to get. And they didn't even understand what that meant, because they couldn't even speak the language. And as a child, I would go to parent-teacher conferences, and I would be like a first grader interpreting for my parents with the teacher. So that was the life that I had, and it was really hard. And I just wanted to be like my classmates. I just wanted to be normal, but I couldn't be normal because I had to work so much harder. I had to help my parents make a living, and I had to go to school and finish college because they were relying on me. And so now when I am faced with challenges, because we are faced with many challenges, that we have to make decisions that sometimes may not be in the great interest of everybody. But if it can help a bigger group of community, or if it can help one individual, then I think it's worth it, because we have to be able to provide everybody with the same equal opportunity that I have been given. And because someday, that little girl will grow up to become a state rep or a county commissioner, and she will give back to her community. So when I'm faced with challenges, I think about, what would my mom do? What would my dad do? What would they want me to do? Because I have to make these really difficult decisions. Not everybody is going to be happy. But ultimately, I think doing the right thing and leading with your values is how they would have wanted me to lead, no matter how hard it is, no matter just how scary things might be, because they lived through all of that, war and persecution, and then the financial and economic struggles.
Your amazing story, and in some ways terrible and just magical story, made you the woman you are today, and I think gives you a unique and qualified perspective above people even like myself who were born here, to talk about what's going wrong with the Trump administration's anti-immigration policy and the evils of ICE and what's going on here. So thanks for sharing that with us. That was very, very interesting, intense, inspiring. And God bless you and your family and your parents and your siblings for prevailing, for surviving. We're going to segue now to the end of our interview. It's the lightning round. And tell us something that the average person might not know about what it's like to work in the Michigan House as a House rep, and make it interesting. If you get in trouble, I apologize.
Oh, that's okay. It's a lot like high school.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
It's about relationship building.
Yeah.
A lot of things happen in the background, and I think you have to learn to get to know people on a personal level, and that's really how things get done.
I can imagine that even if somebody is just heinous in how they vote on the other side and you can't understand and they're doing everything against the constituents and everything for their party or themselves, that sometimes those people are likable.
They are, yeah. Some of them, when the cameras turn on or the microphone goes on, they put up a show because they're, playing to their base. But there are folks that are really funny and nice, and you wouldn't think that about them if you saw them in public.
Yeah, sounds like a good show premise. What's something interesting, which I think you've already told us, but what's something recently that you've done that few people know about?
What have I done? Oh my gosh. I mean, I made my own dress to the Autoshow, and I think people were just shocked that I was able to sew, because I think a lot of people think that as legislators, all we do is, read books or write legislation all day or look at numbers, and I'm a really crafty person, so I love to make stuff. And actually made some buttons here that I want to give to you. To some of your readers.
What do they say? Can you hold them up?
We've got a button here that says defund ICE, not childcare.
I love it.
And there is a button here that says mama. It's Make America Mai Again.
I love that. That's right. That's a great acronym. That's fabulous.
And because we need more mamas in office. That's the reality. There's another one here, Make America Mai Again.
I like that.
So mama. And so a lot of buttons here. And, I think there were a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, but I think just a lot of trolls online that were just saying, they were very upset about the dress with the defund. And I just think it's kind of ironic, because these are the same people that are always talking about our constitutional rights. And we have to remember that the First Amendment is free speech, and I think everybody has to respect that. So I'm going to continue to wear this button for a while, and it's going to rile up some people. But again, I think the message to the American people is that all of this money that could be going towards childcare and healthcare is just getting redirected to DHS and ICE in order to detain U.S. citizens and to terrorize our streets. And we just have to put our foot down. We got to work together, not just as elected officials, but as a community. More people need to speak up. And I've had conversations in private, but I think when people see their elected leaders speaking up, it gives them the strength and the energy to speak up too. And so we need everybody to stand up for what is right and to speak up when they see something happening in our government that is wrong.
I agree. Last year, Speaker of the House, Matt Hall, seemed to target you. Not seemed. He did target you. He called you a low IQ person. Wow, is he wrong? Do you want to say anything to him now, to a guy who I think looks like a potato and has a documented record of abuse towards women? Unbelievable. That seemed like a really stupid and bad move for him. What do you have to say to Matt Hall?
I would say let's take the IQ test. I challenge him to the IQ test. I'll challenge him to a sewing contest. I'll challenge him to a running contest. Like, I'll meet you out on the tracks. Like, whatever you want. If this is a competition, like, let's do it. And I'm not afraid. When people speak down on you and they insult you, that speaks volumes about their character. Every accusation is a confession. And to people who, insult women or others' intelligence, that just tells me that they're not able to argue the facts and the policy and the merits, because otherwise, why would they insult my intelligence and my character. We can have a conversation and talk about policy and our differences, but I'm not going to sit here and attack you on your character or your personal endeavors. And I'm here to work for the people who elected me, and that's what I'm going to continue to do.
Well said. Last question. Your family is Hmong, Hmong. So what is a Hmong-like thing that you do like your mother did?
I raise chickens.
Really?
And yes, in the summer, in the springtime, sometimes in the winter. It's hard to keep them because the weather here in Michigan gets so bad. But I never thought I would be like my mom. Growing up, I just thought, my mom was very strict. She was extremely conservative. Not a Republican, but she was just very conservative as an Asian mother. And I just never thought I would be like her. But now I find myself doing everything exactly like her, eating the same food and, yelling at my kids, not to talk back to me. And raising chickens and eating homemade soup from, organic chicken broth. Like that, I don't eat the store-bought chickens anymore. It just doesn't taste the same. So I find myself being exactly like my mom, and I'm really proud. She is someone that I looked up to, and she was such a strong woman. And everything that you see, what I do and how I speak, I think she is. Her spirit definitely lives through me.
Well, that's a great final word. Thank you, Mai Xiong, House Representative, for being here today and for the sake of the argument. You truly are inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori.